Water, my elixir of life. I touch it, feel it, drink it several times a day. It's part of my life, every day. And it's always special thanks to BWT. Filtered, silky smooth, mineralized, for drinking, showering, heating, and in the pool. In the office, restaurant, or a best water hotel. Even in the hospital, I can rely on BWT water for injections. My life has changed over the years, but as the saying goes, what remains is change. And the best water from BWT. BWT. For you and Planet Blue.
Hello everyone, Hong here. Selamat datang ke Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. I'm here at the heart of the country's downtown core, a vibrant and dynamic metropolis known for its diverse culture, modern skyscrapers, and bustling street markets. This is a nation that is truly Asia with a rich history of Malay, Indian, Chinese, and indigenous influences seen on all corners of the city. Back in 2015, this city hosted the Kuala Lumpur City Grand Prix, and I was here covering that phenomenal race event. In fact, I'm standing at the Malaysia Tourism Center right now where the paddocks were situated. But today, I'm here for a completely different reason. Just a few weeks ago, HyperDrive Cities released their newest street circuit, which was made available for free download. And the purpose behind that? The 2023 HyperDrive Cities Championship is returning, and the destination of this year's race, downtown Kuala Lumpur. With a length of 3.477 kilometers, 19 turns, and a couple of high-speed straights with some interesting spots for wheel-to-wheel action and racing and overtaking, this year's race is sure to accelerate your pulses. More details in the description below. Let's go check out some of the iconic streets and buildings along this magnificent street circuit. This year's championship will be happening on November 4th. Live stream broadcast starts at 8 p.m. and you can catch all the action and excitement on both Nitro and the Legion of Races YouTube channels. Be sure to subscribe and to follow us on our socials for all updates. More details in the description below. Hope you guys enjoyed this short video of Kuala Lumpur, one of my favorite cities in the whole wide world. But before we go, now that you've had a glimpse of the real streets, let's take to the skies for a digital look at the circuit. Enjoy. And a very warm welcome to the live stream of the 2023 HyperDrive Cities Championship. My name is Hong. I'll be your host, and joining me tonight also as the co-commentator is Mr. Javier Lai. Hi, Javier.
Good evening. I am Javier, and welcome to the 2023 edition of the HyperDrive Cities Championship. It is going to be an exciting evening of epic racing here tonight at the Kuala Lumpur Street Circuit. We have some of the fastest sim drivers competing tonight from all over the world. You know, we've got drivers from Singapore to Thailand, Malaysia. We even have countries from very far away, from Poland, Canada, competing in last week's qualifiers.
That's right, and if I remember correctly, there are over 70 participants in last week's qualifiers. Now, this year's race is going to be held at the Kuala Lumpur Street Circuit, and this is a very important circuit for me personally because back in 2015, I was actually covering the 2015 Kuala Lumpur City Grand Prix, and it's a fantastic thing that the guys over at the HyperDrive Cities were able to recreate this phenomenal circuit, and it just makes me really excited. I think some of you may have had a chance to take a look at what the circuit looked like earlier in the video, and here's a side-by-side of the virtual versus the digital. Now, Javier, you know, when I first saw the digital version, the virtual version, I was like blown away by how realistic the graphics are, and these two photos rather showcases just how realistic the circuit is. And I think the guys over at HyperDrive Cities did a phenomenal job.
That's right. It's really amazing how much HyperDrive Cities has evolved over the years since it was first announced in 2021, starting with Singapore's Orchard Road Street Circuit in
Right.
2021, and last year it was Indonesia's Semangi Street Circuit, and of course this year is the Kuala Lumpur Street Circuit. Both all of these circuits are basically digital copies of the real streets with minor modifications for sim racing, and with each year there's always constant modifications and upgrades to the track, and it's always very nice to see that with each year we are seeing more and more participants in the qualifiers. So it is very nice to see that there is constant upgrades, improvements to HyperDrive Cities.
Now, I understand from the organizers that HyperDrive Cities has two versions. So if you go to the website, and for those of you who've never been, remember to check out hyperdrivecities.com after this live stream race. But I understand that there are two versions. So you could download the free maps and, you could just go ahead and practice, have fun, and enjoy these amazing, amazing, very realistic street circuits. And there's also a monthly subscription package that's available, only $5 a month, and you get unlimited updates. You get different skins, I guess. You get day driving, night driving, lights, and all that fancy, realistic, awesome stuff that comes with that package. So for those of you who are interested in doing some sim racing or sim, I guess, street driving on these circuits, you guys have to check out HyperDrive Cities. And by the way, these circuits are not available anywhere else in the world. That is absolutely amazing. Now, Javier, I know that there's a bit of prize money on the table for tonight's race. I think some of the sim drivers already know this. And for those of you who are not sure how much money, Javier, take it away.
Well, that's right. There's a lot of cold hard cash to be given away tonight. I really love the format of the HyperDrive Cities that is being run on over these few years.
Right.
In the qualifiers, third place actually gets $50.
Oh, wait, qualifiers.
Just the qualifiers. You get money even for qualifying.
Oh,
That's right.
wow.
In the top 3 positions,
Wow, that's amazing.
you get $50
Okay.
for the third place. Second is $150, and
Alright.
first place is $300. But that is not it. For the race itself tonight that is happening, the top 10 finishers will get prizes, and of course the podium finishers will get more money than the others. So for third place, you get $1,500.
Ooh.
That is a lot.
That
For
is a
second
lot.
place is $2,500, but we're not there yet. For first place, it is a whopping $3,500 in cash. How amazing is that?
So wait, I'm still blown away. Qualifiers, top 3 qualifiers get a bit of cash money, cash prizes, and the top 10 drivers for tonight's race also take home, well, a lot of money, right?
That's right. It
What's the
actually
total
totals
amount?
up to $10,000. $10,000 is going to be given away.
Wow.
How amazing.
That's a lot of money. Now, to be honest, for those of you who are parents and have kids who enjoy sim racing or sim driving, or if you think that they're spending too much time playing computer games, I think the HyperDrive Cities Championship is a good, clear example that if you put in enough practice and dedication, and obviously with a little bit of luck, you could become a professional sim driver. You could become, you could make a career out of it. And I think Exhibit A, Mr. Javier Lai here, is a good example of someone that could take that to the next level. Now, all this is obviously not possible without the support of our key partners and sponsors, and they're obviously our good friends over at the Legion of Racers, BWT, Motul, Tarmac Works,
And of course, not to forget Next Level Racing, Logitech, and our media partner Nitro for supporting us in this year's HyperDrive Cities Championship.
All right, well, I understand that the drivers are now in their practice session. I know that the organizers for HyperDrive Cities provides up to 30 minutes of practice session for the drivers, but let's be honest, these drivers have been practicing probably day in and day out for hours upon hours for the past couple of days. Let's take a look at this circuit. Javier, you are the professional. Tell us a little bit more about the Kuala Lumpur Street Circuit.
Well, absolutely, Hong. The Kuala Lumpur Street Circuit Sprint version is a 3.477 kilometer track with 19 turns. This street circuit obviously developed by HyperDrive Cities, but there are actually 2 versions of this track. There is a longer version available on hyperdrivecities.com.
Okay.
It is 4.738 kilometers long, but for tonight's race, we will be driving on the shorter sprint layout of 3.477 kilometers long.
So, Javier, tell us a bit more about this circuit. I mean, 3.477 kilometers with 19 turns. It doesn't sound like a very large circuit. You know, like Sepang Circuit or Fuji Speedway, they're 5 kilometers. And 3.477 with 19. What would that bring to the table? What are our viewers gonna expect in terms of racing? Is this gonna be a tight circuit for the drivers to compete in for 30 minutes?
Well, absolutely. A street circuit definitely brings its challenges. There is no such thing as off track because once you're off the track, well, you're technically in the wall,
Right.
right? Because the walls are what surrounds a street circuit. And actually, some of the important sections of this track I would like to give a mention is one of the first few corners around the middle of the track. There's a chicane.
Okay.
So it's a very heartbreaking zone into the chicane, right, and then another left. Now that is a very tricky corner. I've tried the track for myself. It's very, very tricky. You need to brake really hard. You need to brake in a straight line because you're coming in through a turn. So you need to brake in a straight line and get just the correct amount of speed and have a lot of very good spatial awareness to make sure you don't crash into the barriers on your right and on the left.
Right.
And also what makes this track even more challenging is the sausage curbs. One wrong move. I think you've tried it before yourself, Hong.
It's two wheels, one wheels, into the wall, game over.
That's right. So you really have to be on edge driving on a street circuit. So that's really what makes a street circuit different from a regular track, say Sepang, or generally the tracks you see in Formula One, maybe.
Right. Well, I mean, that's one of the things why we love street circuits as well, because of that level of excitement that is guaranteed. Because, like you mentioned earlier, Javier, no runoff, no sand, no grass. It's just walls. If you lose focus for half a second, it is pretty much GG, good game, game over.
And it is over for you.
Exactly. And the thing is, we don't want that to be over for anyone else as well. So we're looking at the qualifiers last week, over 70 competitors, over 70 drivers competing, and we have some very interesting lap times. Now, I did spend a little bit of time, by a little bit, I mean like an hour. I did like 30 laps on this Kuala Lumpur street circuit. And the fastest time I did was 1 minute 39. Now, my theoretical best is 1:38. If you put on the best.
So that's pretty good. That's
No,
pretty good.
it's okay. But these guys, they're doing 1 minute 32s, 1 minute 31s. That is blistering speed. So, but we all know that that's for qualifying session, right? Where you basically have open road in front of you. You don't have traffic to fight with. There's no back markers blocking you. What do you think we could expect during the race later, Javier, when all 20 odd drivers are going down the streets at the same time?
Well, there's an interesting point that you note. In the qualifiers, obviously, you are driving by yourself. There's no traffic to think about. There's no back markers to think about.
Right.
But for the qualifying session later, it's a 10-minute session, not very long. 10-minute session is actually quite short, and as we can actually see on the screen right now, it's 30 minutes practice session and a 10 minutes qualifying, then followed by a 30 minutes race. Now this 10 minutes of qualifying isn't actually that long if you think about it, because you need to be able to factor in a lot of different factors. You need to think about how many laps you're going to need to do. You need to make sure you do not get yourself involved in traffic, because you do not want slower drivers in front of you, obviously. If not, you're going to get impeded by them. So we are most probably not going to see the same blistering lap times we see in the qualifiers. So surely it's going to be quite a challenge to be able to navigate through traffic and to put yourself in a good position to set a decently good lap time. But of course, qualifying is just qualifying doesn't determine what position you finish in the race. So the race strategy is also just as important for a street circuit.
Which jumps into my next question that I have for you, because he's the pro. 10-minute qualifying session, your first outlap, right? So that's what, a minute and a half, 2 minutes gone. You have remaining 8 minutes to clock your fastest lap, your flying lap. Like you mentioned, if there's traffic ahead of you, so a little bit of luck is also involved. But now moving on to the circuit that we were just talking about, that you guys just saw on the screen, turn 1 and 2, right off the get-go, it is a very, shall I say, challenging right turn, and you have 20 odd drivers all cramming in there. Will it do the drivers any good to be a little bit more conservative at the start, or do you think all the drivers should just go pedal to the metal, full throttle all the way out?
But the first corner actually reminds me a little bit of turn 2 of the Macau street circuit.
Right.
So it's a very high speed right corner, and on the qualifying lap, it's a bit of a tap on the brakes before you go back to full power, because it's a very, very high speed right turn. But
Right.
of course, like you mentioned, we have 25 odd drivers competing for track position into turn 1. Not exactly the brightest idea to go full send into turn 1. So generally you would see, well, I would think generally you would see the drivers take more of a conservative pace into turn 1. Of course, the race is not won in turn 1. It is just as important to be conservative and to have track position. So we may have a mix of strategies here. You know, do you want to send it in turn 1 to get track position, or you go conservative and maybe hope for, you know, a bit of an incident in turn 1 and sneak yourself up to the top positions after said incident.
Right, and sometimes that could be a viable strategy, right? If you're in, I guess, 5th, 6th position, you know, you're just staying, hanging at the back, you know, waiting for hopefully something to happen. But obviously we don't hope for that. We hope all the drivers have a great time tonight for the 2023 edition of the HyperDrive Cities Championship. Now, speaking of drivers, there are over 20 drivers that will be competing in tonight's competition. Let's take a look at who these 20-odd drivers are.
Well, from first place, we have Jaka Siswoyo from Indonesia. But actually, that's one point I'd like to quickly mention. We have a lot of Indonesian drivers that have qualified for this year's HyperDrive Series Championship. So a really star-studded entry list that we have here tonight. Followed by, P2, we have got Dafa Ardiansa. P3, Fadli Rahmat. P4, Dafa Nabil. P5, Moreno Pratama. And in 6th place out of the top 5, we have our first non-Indonesian. We have Kamil Pulowski from Poland.
That's a long, long way from this part of the world. What time is it in Poland, actually?
That's right.
It's 8:16 p.m. here in Singapore, Southeast Asia. I'm going to guess they are maybe 7 hours or 6 hours behind us. So I guess it's around 2 p.m. in the afternoon. So well, good afternoon to all our viewers over in Poland and in Europe.
Really far away.
That's right. Okay, so in 7th position, we have also from Indonesia, Andika Rama. 8th position starting is our Thai representative, Tanatip Tanalapanan. 9th position starting will be Muhammad Ifran, also from Indonesia. And in 10th position will be from the Philippines, Russell Reyes.
And in P11, we have Ilham Shak. In 12th position, we have Billy Ebenhazer. In 13th place, we have our first Malaysian in the entry list, Nakib Azlan. P14, our first Singaporean in this entry list, Ethan Yeo. P15, Muhammad Hakimi, also from Singapore.
And in 16th position, representing Indonesia again, we have Faiz Ryan. 17th, Malaysian driver Nabil Azlan. 18th driver, Indonesian Ferdi Jerry. 19th position, Indonesian driver Putra Dharma, and in position number 20, also from Indonesia, Ricky Satria.
Now in P21, we've got Rifki Afiat. P22, sorry, how do I pronounce it? Fakriza Al-Ghifari. I'm so sorry if I got that wrong. And of course, in P23, we've got Halis Ilyasa.
All right, well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen, all of you watching this live stream from the comfort of your sofa or bed, I hope. Javier, you're right. There are a lot of representatives from Indonesia. We do have a few from Malaysia and Singapore as well. One from Poland, and I believe that's also just one from the Philippines. So here we are now in the qualifying sessions. There are 10 minutes to go. 45 seconds in. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the qualifying session for the 2023 HyperDrive Cities.
We are looking at a very epic qualifying session. This is, of course, a 10-minute short qualifying session. We've got 20-odd drivers competing for track position in this very short 10 minutes qualifying session. Of course, just like I mentioned earlier, it's very important to be able to find a spot in a street circuit like this, so you do not get impeded by other drivers while gunning for the fastest lap time possible.
That's right. I think a good strategy with a little bit of luck will be to have a driver in front and behind you of similar pace, and maybe, you know, just like a 1 second gap, so you could all kind of have clean air in front of you. These cars that we're looking at, these are all the BMW M235 racing cars from Assetto Corsa here at HyperDrive Cities Championship, and it's very interesting cars because, you know, it's a little, okay, I consider it a little tail happy. What do you think, Javier?
I do agree with you actually. I've driven a few laps on this car. It's actually a pretty nice car to drive, but of course, these cars, you know, there is a lot to play with in these cars, but unfortunately, or maybe fortunately for some of these drivers, it is a fixed setup and there's 0% tire and fuel consumption. So that is a good and bad thing, depending on what kind of a driver you are. So it's really up to driver skill. There is no such thing as, oh, my car is set up a little bit better than that other guy. So really no excuses for these drivers here.
So I guess it's a good way to have a controlled one-make race. Everyone's driving the same car, very similar settings, and well, obviously we don't wish for any incidents and no one to hit the walls. All right, so we have drivers that have already completed their first timed lap. Currently leading the board is Russell Reyes with a lap time of 1:47.431. Now that is, I think that's still a warm-up lap, right, Javier? I don't think that's their fastest lap time at the moment.
Yep, that is just their first out lap, but it is roughly an indicator of some of the faster drivers in that sense, because as we saw from the start, actually all of these drivers left the pits at around the same time, so you can see some very familiar names here in the sim racing community. We've got Russell Reyes at the top, well not anymore.
Yeah.
The first
back
proper
up
time lap. Oh, back up again. That was quick. The first proper time laps are really coming in now. Like you've mentioned, some of these pro drivers, they're doing 131s, 132s, and of course the fastest timing so far is a 132.921. Not exactly the fastest we've seen in the qualifiers, but of course, you know, I'm not expecting to see blistering lap times here because they're under so much pressure to even just put a decent lap time within this short 10-minute qualifying session.
Yeah, speaking of short time, Javier, there's only 6 minutes left for these drivers to clock their qualifying lap time, which will determine their starting grid. Now, we talked a little bit earlier about how important it is to be in a good starting position for the start of the race. You're right, you know, the race isn't won at turn 1 on lap 1, but being in that top few grid positions, if you may, at the start of the race will have a little bit of advantage. And I think it also gives you a little bit of a, I almost wanted to say ego boost. I meant a confidence boost for these drivers to know that, okay, you know, I could qualify well and I could race well. And talking about qualifying well, currently leading the board still is Russell Reyes with a lap time of 1:32.9.1. Pratama is two 1,000ths of a second behind. That is barely the blink of an eye. And Rajmat in third position now, 2/10ths of a second behind as well. So these lap times from these top 10 drivers are, in fact, no, sorry, these lap times from the top 12 to top 11 drivers are all pretty much within 1 second of each other. That's amazing stuff, Javier.
You can see the top 3 positions are all Indonesians. Of course, we've got, I was just about to say the next non-Indonesian was Nakib Azlan, but as we see, we're riding on board Tanatip Tanalapanan here. He has just set a timing good enough for P4, and in P5 we've got the Malaysian of Nakib Azlan. So, you know, the top 3 positions, the podium positions, are still claimed by the Indonesians. Will there be a non-Indonesian who will be able to claim the podium later on, maybe later in the qualifiers or maybe even in the race? Who knows? But of course, we have the Polish driver to think about as well. He's racing from so far away.
That's right. I hope all the internet connections will not be a factor for the drivers. All 22 of them, all 23 of them, obviously. If you guys are looking at the live stream right now, at the bottom right corner, you would see Andika Rama, who is streaming live from Indonesia. It'll be pretty awesome if we could ask him some interview questions right now, but I don't think he will be able to focus at all because you can see the intensity of his face that he is here for the win. Currently in 9th position out of the pack, and I'm not sure if it's going to be nice for me to say this, but that's not exactly a position that he's familiar with. He's usually up in the top 5, top 6 as well, but here he comes. Let's see what time he has for this flying lap, if there's any change.
Wow.
Oh, wait. Our Polish friend has jumped all the way up to the top of the line, top of the grid rather, with a 132.821. Andika Rama right now still in 9th position. There was cameras on him earlier.
Oh, we've got a car. Oh, and
That's
the car's
right.
gone. The car was stopped in the middle of the track. I thought there was a problem with the car maybe, but you know, again, this is only 30% damage, so probably not an issue with the car.
That's right, but they have less than 3 minutes to go for this qualifying session. It is already starting to get really, really exciting. Leading this pack now is Pratama with a 132.784. 300ths of a second behind is our Polish friend Pawlowski, and Russell Reyes 1/10 of a second behind as well. So well, it's starting to mix up. It's not Indonesia 1, 2, 3 anymore at the moment, and but qualifying is qualifying. It all only matters who crosses the start finish line at the end of the race.
Well, the timing board is really starting to shake up. It is constantly changing with each second. While we are here, you know, Kamil Pawlowski, our Polish driver, currently in P2. He is a very, very quick driver. It's a new name. I have not seen him generally in the Asian sim racing community so far. Of course, we are very familiar with the names of Moreno, Pratama, Russell Reyes, Andika Rama Malana. You know, all of these names are very familiar in our Asian sim racing community. But you know, this Polish driver, Kamil Pawlowski, you know, really shaking things up here for the Indonesians. So I think he is really the one to put pressure on the Indonesians for the podium for the race later on, I would think.
Well, I am sitting here with my hands together. I am nervous. I'm excited for all these drivers. Ooh, I think that was a little bit of a contact on the right side of the wall earlier for Pawlowski. I'm not sure if that's going to affect his lap time for this second last lap, I would assume. Cameras now with Jaka Siswoyo. And let me get my bearings. What corner is this? I think that was turn...
That would be turn 1, actually.
Turn 1, yeah, exactly right. Now they're breaking into turn 2. That was the 70-meter mark, the very nice, clean lines.
That's the problem. I think we can see there's a little bit of traffic in front of him, and he just touches the wall. I'm not sure if that would have invalidated his time, but you know, it seems he would be impeded by traffic. I would think, because he's really closing in on the guy in front of him, and he did flash his lights early on in the lap. Maybe that was an indicator for the guy in front to maybe move away, but then again, you know, that guy could be on his own qualifying lap as well, so that is one thing he has to take note of. So like I mentioned earlier, it's very important to be able to get track position during your qualifying, because you know,
exactly.
you do not want to be impeded by traffic, but of course you need to think about the other drivers who are gunning for their own lap times as well. So yeah, a lot of strategy even in qualifying itself already.
You're absolutely spot on there, Javier. And I'm not sure if the drivers are feeling any frustration. I guess some drivers a little bit more than others. But camera's still here on Jaka Siswoyo, almost at the end of this lap with 4 seconds to go. So I think this will be the final chance for a timed lap. Here they come on to turn 18 and 9. Well, turn 18, 19, that's correct. And about to cross the start finish line. Let's see what kind of timing he will be able to take home.
Yeah, and it seems unfortunately he does not improve, but that would be his final lap for this qualifying session. You can see some of their drivers have already ended their qualifying sessions early. Thanathip and Fadli Rahmat have already entered the pits. Dafa Adiansa, Jaka, who we've seen or his onboard lap earlier, are already in the pits. As you can see, more and more drivers are crossing the line, entering the pits as we come into the final few minutes of this qualifying session as we wait for everyone to cross the finish line.
That's right. Let's see if there is sufficient time for the drivers to come. Oh, I think that probably might have been it. All right, so we have our provisional results right now. On the starting grid in pole position is Pratma with a lap time of 1:32.654. In second position is Pawlowski with a lap time of 1/10 of a second behind. In third position, we have Thanalapan and in fourth, Rajmat.
That's right. In P5, we have Russell Reyes. In P6, we have Dafa Ardiansa. P7, Jakasis Woyo. P8, Nakib Azlan. P9, Andika Rama Malana. And in P10, and that rounds off our top 10, Dafa Nabil.
That's right. Okay, so Javier, let's talk really quick because I think we only have about 1 or 2 minutes before we jump into the start of the race. This is 2023 HyperDrive Cities. For those of you who just joined us, welcome and a very warm evening to you. Very warm welcome and a very good evening to you. So Javier, we were talking about the race settings. Zero tire wear, zero fuel consumption, 30% damage, but the drivers are able to set their ABS and traction control. So there is a little bit of personalization, I guess you could say, that the drivers are allowed to do. Will that play a difference in how they perform?
Well, honestly, I wouldn't think it would really matter that much because I think it's really more of a driver preference. You know, some drivers would say you are faster without
Traction
control
control,
and
ABS, right.
ABS. But you know, some drivers are able to leverage on the assistance that the traction control and ABS gives, and they may even go faster with it on. So it's really a matter of driver preference.
Right, so I think that's the part where practice is not enough. You need even more practice than that. You need so much practice. And I've seen some of these drivers perform in live studios and live race settings. And to be very honest, I am always just blown away because they could literally close their eyes and do the driving because the muscle memory is there. They're so used to the cars, they're so used to the circuit, and that's only because they spend a lot of time practicing. So, you know, what other tips are there, Javier,
So
aside from practice?
it's really a matter of a very good understanding of the car that you're driving and also the track that you are driving. So spatial awareness becomes second nature to you. It feels like you are at one with the car. It's almost as if you can, you know, while you are exiting a corner and you're going onto the curbs, you can feel the wall beside of you. As actually we see the drivers are now lining up for the grid for the final race. It's a 30-minute race session.
That's right. We have all 23 drivers on the starting grid. It is unknown when the race would start because this is controlled entirely by the simulator itself. So this is the part where I think all the drivers are super excited because they're sitting there like, do we wait 10 seconds? Do we wait 25 seconds? You can hear the engines of some of the drivers revving already. They are all raring to go. They're all eager and excited to go. JV, I'm not going to lie, I too am excited for them. And here we go. The lights are red and we are about to go racing. Lights are red, lights are red. Anytime now, lights off, and away we go.
And we see we have a very exciting race here tonight. Here into turn one, you see some of these drivers are going 2 wide, 3 wide even. Some of them may be taking a more conservative approach to turn one. As we see so far, no incidents into turn one, so we are good.
That's right. That was a very, very clean start from all the drivers. Every single one of them almost clinical, but no one as clinical as Pratma at this moment. He is shooting away 0.8 of a second ahead of Polowski already here on lap number 1. It's a 30 minutes race, like you mentioned earlier, Javier. We are, 45 seconds in, 29 minutes and 15 seconds to go till we find out who the winners are for the 2023 HyperDrive Cities.
And things are really starting to shake up at the back of the grid. You see some of these drivers going too wide and they're still battling into some of these corners. You see, we've got a bit of contact.
Oh, contact at the chicane. Who is this? It is Andy Ansan.
Oh, this is where I expected some action you know, we are going to see a lot of action here at the chicane. It is a very, very difficult corner to master. Personally, even for me, I find it very difficult, let alone race. You know, even on a hot lap, it's already so difficult to get it perfectly right. You know, now we have to think about other drivers as well.
That's right. And also, like we mentioned earlier at the start of this live stream, Javier, there are some drivers such as Russell Reyes here who I believe is following the tail end or the mid-pack of this train, just waiting for an opportunity to pounce ahead because there is that battle slightly up ahead. I think that's battle for 5th position. That's between Ardiansa and Aslan, 5th and 6th position earlier that we saw.
Oh, I thought we were about to see a battle into turn 1 here as Staffan Nabil just has to back out as he was almost alongside the car in front, but just not enough. So making the right move to back out of there to not cause an incident. But as you can see, he's really starting to lose time here, but he does have clean air in front of him to continue to push. As while we are so hung up on all the battles that's been going on behind at the grid, Moreno Pratama is already leading by 2 seconds just on lap 1.
That's right, Javier. That is very, very impressive driving, and a bit of a switch of a position. Our friend from Poland, Palowski, has dropped down to 3rd position. Bank from Thailand has now jumped up to 2nd and seems to be defending that position quite rigorously earlier that we saw. So things are also shaking up at the top 4 drivers for this race. Camera now with Muhammad Irfan in 12th position, and I guess he's got to be on a bit of a defensive line.
Now I have to say this was not the race I was expecting. You know, looking at the times from the qualifiers last week, we see the Indonesians were really, really strong in the hot lap qualifying sessions. But you know, as you can see, in earlier qualifying session and now in the race, you know, I actually predicted that it would be Indonesians in the top 3, but as you can see, there's only one Indonesian currently in P1. We've got the Thai driver, Tanalapanan, in P2, and the Polish driver competing from the other side of the world in P3, followed by another Indonesian, Fadli Rahmat, in P4, and P5 we've got Dafa Adianta. So not exactly the top 3 positions I was expecting. So it's definitely looking to be a really exciting race for the next 26 minutes of this race.
That's right, Javier. Now camera on Palowski. Now I do have to say, if we have a 6-7 hour difference for most of us in Southeast Asia, we would have probably finished dinner. Not the drivers. I'm pretty sure none of them have eaten anything since lunch maybe. But over in Poland, I mean, it's just mid-afternoon. So probably a little bit more energy there. Will that play a factor? Will that make any difference? Well, we'll find out in 25 minutes.
Well, actually, I predicted that there would be some sort of an internet connection issue. Maybe, you know, competing from Poland, I would think there's a bit of a lag difference. You know, that is one thing about sim racing that is different from real racing. We have lag to think about, especially if you're competing from another region like in Europe and you're connecting to an Asian server. I would think that the ping would make a difference, but it seems that it's very smooth. There doesn't seem to be much of an issue with lag, so I think maybe he's competing from somewhere here in Asia.
That's right, Javier, you're absolutely right. We're now on board with Moreno Pratama, who is currently in is it 5th position?
Not entirely sure here. I think this would be Billy Ebenhazer.
Yes, okay, so
yes.
There's a shift over from the drivers. Okay, once again with Andika Rama, who is streaming and racing live from Indonesia. Now, JV, I do need to ask, we did talk about how the drivers who qualified in the top, I think it was top 7 or top 8 were our friends from Indonesia. But will that be a strategy for the drivers who know that they could do a little faster to actually slow down in the qualifiers, just to, you know, make things exciting for all the drivers tonight, or to give them a surprise rather?
That would be an interesting strategy, but not likely, I would say, because this is a street circuit, so there is not much room for overtaking, though there are some positions on this track which are a little bit wider, so there is more room for overtaking. But generally you would see drivers prioritize track position a little bit more on a street circuit, because there is not much room for error. As you can see, just exiting out of this corner, if you do run wide, you're going straight into the wall. So not exactly a strategy I would use on a street circuit, because track position is everything. It's really difficult to overtake on a street circuit like this. You know, maybe in the final corner here, if you're driving on this track, it doesn't look that difficult of a corner. It's just a simple right corner, but maybe it's a bit of an illusion. It's actually more of an acute angle,
right?
So maybe you want to dive down the inside to pull off and overtake in that corner. But you know, you need to factor in the fact that there's walls on your right and on your left on your exit, so it's really, really difficult to pull off and overtake. So if you really want to pull off and overtake on a street circuit, you really have to you just have to send it, because if you're half-half on the overtake and you cause an incident, obviously that's not what you want.
Right, and as we mentioned earlier, for street circuits, there's no runoff. If you hit the wall, you hit the wall. Beautiful entry and exit into that corner from Ebenezer, and in that lime green BMW. I gotta say, these liveries are really exciting me, turning me on, if you may. Some very interesting colors and design schemes for the livery here at HyperDrive Cities.
That's right. And actually, speaking of liveries, the top 3 drivers from the qualifiers get to actually pilot the special BMW M235i with the BWT livery. As you can see, the driver in P7, Jaka Siswoyo, piloting the BWT livery. Of course, BWT is our partner for this year's HyperDrive Cities Championship. It's a really beautiful livery. It reminds me of the 2020 F1 car piloted by the Racing Point Formula 1 team. A really nice pink car, which you can also see in some of the GT races you see in real life.
That's right, I've seen a few in real life. In fact, GT3, GT-C, GTM cars, if I remember correctly. But right now, none of that on the mind of these drivers. They are 101% focused on the driver in front and behind them. Camera now on Andika Rama in 8th position, right behind Siswoyo and right ahead of Russell Reyes and Shaq. This little train is starting to look exciting, because I think these drivers are indeed waiting for that opportunity to pounce ahead. You can see Russell Reyes coming really close, almost bumper to bumper with Andika Rama, mimicking every single move that he's making, while Andika Rama on the tail of Siswoyo, also bumper to bumper at certain corners and mimicking everything that the driver in front is doing. Here's a nicer view of this chicane that you're talking about. You see that sausages that these drivers should not even touch. I tried a little bit, and once I hit the sausage, I was all over the place. That's not going to happen to these drivers. These drivers are precision drivers. Look at them. It is almost like a copy and paste in terms of the line they're taking. What phenomenal driving.
You can really see these drivers are really on the edge of grip here. They are getting so close to the walls, uncomfortably close to the walls, but that's exactly what makes them professional sim racers. It is as if they are at one with the car. They know exactly where they are placing the car. Of course, this takes years of experience to be able to be on edge with these cars. You see, taking this first corner, they are so close to the wall on the inside, and of course on the exit they are so close to the wall as well. You really have to be able to get the right timing to get on the brakes and to get back on the power. It's all a matter of understanding the behavior of the car that you're piloting.
And using the full width of the track. I think that cannot be, that is definitely something that these drivers are doing, understanding the track limits. So during the practice sessions, they would have pushed and pushed and pushed to find out exactly how far they are able to go beyond the limit, within the limits rather. For most regulation is to ensure at least 2 wheels still inside the white line. Different simulators and different track layouts have different requirements. Camera now on Pulowski, receiving a lot of pressure from Rajmat at the back. They are very, very close to one another, especially coming out of some of these corners. I think along the Jalan Ampang area, we're going to see some interesting and exciting time differences between these two drivers. This is Jalan Ampang right now. They're coming down straight on Jalan Ampang before they brake hard for that left turn. 4 corners, 2 left followed by 2 right to make up the final corner. You see the beautiful Saloma Bridge on the left side, identical replica with the real thing, but again, no one's sightseeing. There are no tourists here. These are all drivers just dead focused on the car ahead of them.
That's right, we are more than 10 minutes into this race right now, as we see the battles are really starting to calm down a little bit. Everyone is starting to get into the groove of this race, and we see groups starting to form. We see Moreno Pratama is on a league of his own. He is 4.8 seconds, almost 5 seconds ahead of P2 now. But of course, being in P1, you are experiencing a lot of pressure to not make a mistake. Actually, we are seeing a bit of a battle here in P8. Andika Ramamolana and Jaka Siswoyo, they are still side by side going to these corners.
Oh,
we see Jaka Siswoyo 3 wide now. That is insane.
Exactly. I noticed that there was a bit of swap in positions between the two drivers, Andika and Sisboyo. It's still happening right now. You can see these three of them.
Oh, a bit of contact. We see
All
Russell
four
Reyes.
cars.
Very cheeky there. He was actually 2 positions behind, and he absolutely got that timing right. He made use of the battle between Andika Rama and Jaka Sisboyo to sneak his way past the both of them, and he has gained 2 positions since then. He's now up to P7, Jaka Sisboyo in P8 and Andika Rama in P9. But this battle has not ended yet. We see Ilham Shak also gunning for these positions. He sees there's a battle going on and he wants to make use of this opportunity to get himself maybe an extra place or 2.
That's right, and I think now we have side-by-side, mirror-to-mirror, door-to-door racing as they come into the last 4 corners of this lap. We're on board now with Shaq, who's currently in 9th position, with Andika Rama in 8th, right in front of him. Sisboyo not too far behind. Again, bumper-to-bumper drivers between all these 4 drivers. I think Russell Reyes, like you mentioned earlier, Javier, did a phenomenal move, just waiting for the right opportunity. He saw it, he saw the gap, he went for it, and he is through that gap now with a little bit of gap in front. Andika Rama in 8th position, maybe able to reel him in, but still very focused on the battle that's happening on behind him, because that is the battle for 8th that they want to take away from Andika Rama. So while he's trying to chase up to Russell Reyes, he's also having to defend these 3 attackers from behind.
That's the interesting play of strategy that we were talking about earlier. Do you want to send it, or do you want to play a more conservative role and wait for an incident to happen? And just like what a phenomenal move by Russell Reyes, as we saw earlier, he played conservative. He waited for Andika Rama and Jaka Sisboyo to battle it out, and once he saw the opportunity to dive down the inside of both of them,
he took
just
it.
from there in 1 corner, 2 places. How amazing!
That's right. Now, I have to say, it's a pretty cool thing. You were just talking about the livery. Check out these 2, this pair of BMW M235i racing cars. It's, well, one ahead of the other, but it's a beautiful scene, beautiful sight to see this car squeezing and racing down Jalan Ampang here onto the final 4 corners again of this particular lap. Lap number 8, moving on to lap number 9, I believe. Drivers are almost at the halfway point of this race. You were right to say, Javier, that the drivers are now settling in and they're slowly splitting up into groups. Oh, I think that was Ethan Yeo, representative from Singapore, in 14th position. A little bit of contact there with Aslan behind him right here at the end of turn 19. Lights flashing, and let's see what happens, what transpires between these 2 drivers. This is the corner you were talking about earlier, Javier. A slight tap of the brake, and then it's full throttle again into turn 1 to make sure that they bring as much speed in and out of that corner. Also a very scary corner to to go flat out, even with that tap of the brake.
Actually, earlier we saw the battle between the Indonesians. Actually, there's a double left-hander just before the final corner of the Seloma Bridge, if I got that correct. The 2 double left-handers are actually a very tricky corner to personally for me while I was learning the circuit. You have to be able to get your apexes right. Which apex do you aim for? Because you also need to remember, you need to set yourself up for the corners in front as well. So to be able to see a battle through that corner, we see the Indonesian drivers taking different lines throughout that corner. Some of these drivers a little bit unsure about what kind of lines to take, because you do not know. Well, as we see, this is exactly the corner that we're talking about. Dafa Ardiansa thinking about a move there, but he does not know what kind of a line he's going to take through that corner. So it's really amazing to see the different lines these drivers are taking. But of course, this is also a street circuit. We see more of these drivers playing a more conservative approach to these corners that they're a bit more unfamiliar with, because this is generally a new track that they've not raced on before. It is a new track released by HyperDrive Cities. As we see another move being made at the exact corner that I was talking about earlier, playing a more conservative role here, because one small mistake could put your car in the wall. So we see more of these drivers backing out. So interesting to see actually, because I was expecting 2 different approaches here, to either really full send it because it's a very short 30-minute sprint race, or well, we see most of these drivers actually going for the more conservative approach. They're thinking, okay, actually 15 minutes is still quite a bit of time, so maybe I should play a bit more conservative, back off a little bit, and look for another opportunity elsewhere.
Well, I know that the top 10 drivers will definitely want to stay in that top 10 position. As you mentioned earlier, 10,000 Singapore dollars on the prize pool for all 10 drivers. Obviously, the top 3 drivers on the podium will bring home a little bit more than the others, but that's still a whole lot of cold, hard cash into the pockets of all these professional sim drivers. Camera now on Pulowski from Poland, currently in 3rd position, and really close behind is Rachmat and Ardiansa. The final 3 corners here, will there be any overtaking? We don't know yet. No, the 2 BWT drivers are still bumper to bumper. They're still driving, like you mentioned earlier, Javier, a little bit more on the conservative side. I think they're still waiting for the opportunity to pounce ahead. Well, way far ahead is Pratama in 1st position, and I think he will be in a very comfortable situation right now because he's got a 6.5 second lead ahead of Bank from Thailand, but that position is not secure in any way whatsoever because Pulowski is not too far behind.
So actually we are seeing a battle for P2 here. We've got 4 drivers in this battle for P2. Not such a good idea, not for for the Polish driver, or rather the Thai driver of Tanatip Tanalapanan, who might want to gun for 1st position. Not exactly the best situation he's in right now because he's under a lot of pressure from the Polish driver in P3. So he does not seem that he is able to catch up to Moreno Pratama in front because he is defending his P2 position. So unfortunate for him, he is a little bit behind trying to defend his P2 position, but this is great for Moreno Pratama. He is enjoying life out there on a private track day. He is now 6.5 seconds ahead of P2. So if you are an Indonesian fan watching this race right now, you'd be very happy. Though if you are if you're from Thailand or you're from Poland, you probably be cheering on for the drivers in P2 and P3 to stay in these podium positions, or maybe hope for an incident to happen, to maybe shake things up a little bit, see if they still have a chance for P1 maybe.
Well, the funny thing, or rather the difference with sim racing and real life racing, aside from some factors that we cannot deny, such as G-forces and the impact of weather, being warm and hot in the car, will also be factors such as yellow flags, red flags, and all that stuff. So I think that kind of allows this racing to be a little bit more intense in a certain way, because it's pretty much non-stop action. And just like you mentioned earlier, Javier, Bank needs to be very cautious because Pulowski's lap time is very consistent with him. So this is indeed a battle for 2nd. The question is, will he be able to defend this 2nd position all the way for the next 10 or so minutes to the end of the race, or will Pulowski be able to actually catch up?
You see some of these drivers really just waiting for an opportunity to appear, waiting for each other to make a mistake, and they will immediately pounce on that opportunity. So it's very similar. I would think it would be very similar to what we see in karting. One small mistake and the rest of the drivers behind you will follow that same line behind, and you could lose potentially 2-3 places just from one mistake.
That's right. Now we are cameras on Shaq, who is currently in 9th position. Sisboyo not far away. You can see that is legit bumper to bumper coming into turn 19, clearing it over and to the start-finish line before they attack that turn 1. That's super exciting turn 1. Let's see how much speed they're carrying in here. 152 kilometers, 154 kilometers at the exit of turn 1. Very impressive driving, all 3 drivers here. But the pressure is definitely up for Shaq. Sisboyo is not far behind. Nabil is not far behind, in fact. This battle for 9th position.
Oh, it seems we have a bit of a shake-up at the back of the grid. Faiz Ryan seems to have lost a few places, and he is losing even more places As we speak, he's already down to P20. Unsure if he has some sort of an incident, but we see quite a bit of a shake-up at the back of the grid. They're not sure what is happening.
That's right. Like you said earlier, this is these sort of street circuits. If you do come into contact with another driver, or if you hit the wall, or if you fly over the sausage on the hit the chicane at the wrong angle, it could pretty much be game over for you. Not happening for this driver at this very moment. We're on board with Adiansa in 5th position with Rajmat right ahead. These are the two BWT liveried drivers in this BMW M2355 coming into turn 17.
Almost going for a move there. He was looking down the inside there, Dafa Adiansa, but of course playing a more conservative approach there, not fully going for the overtake. You know, on the street circuit, like I mentioned, you really have to be very decisive. You know, if you're going to dive down the inside, you have to fully commit to it. If not, you might cause an incident.
Right, so that something holding them back would also be something that would be detrimental for the drivers, because if they're not ready to commit 100%, but they also understand that if they do commit 100% and they miscalculate it, it will be, well, it's all or bust, right? So
because there's prize money on the line as well. Of course, there is prize money for the top 10 positions. Of course, you get even more money with each position that you gain. So, you know, the top 5 are definitely getting prize money. But of course, you will want to gun for even more prize money because they're all so close to each other. Actually, we are less than 10 minutes into the race. We may or may not see bolder moves from some of these drivers to really fight for that last few positions before the end of the race.
that's right. Now these are the drivers now on Jalan Sultan Ismail. They just crossed the Chulan train station. Here comes the chicane. The left, right, left, right, left, right, left rather. Cleanly executed by all these drivers that we're on board with right now, with Rajmat in 4th position. 5th position, Adiansa not too far behind. Might be a little bit of a glitch there. Seems like a little bit of a drift there. Not even going, well, going so close to the wall. I held my breath there for a moment. Perfectly, flawlessly executed. Drivers, that was brilliant driving.
That was amazing. It seems we are now riding on board with the driver in P21, and we seem to have our first retirement P22 already. Nakib Azlan, the Malaysian driver, not sure what happened there, but that is our first DNF of this race. Though it's not a very long race, we've got 6 minutes and 30 seconds remaining. Anything can happen. We are now watching the battle unfold at the back of the grid.
Oh, that was Nabil Azlan, I think, that was out of the race. Wow, this is one of the top Malaysian drivers competing in tonight's race. That was, I don't know what happened. Maybe a disconnection from the internet, maybe incident. If you look at the front bumper of the driver with the camera is looking at right now in 20th position is green BMW. You can see quite a fair bit of damage on the front hood and the front bumper. Now, damage is only set at 30%, so it's not immense, I guess you could say. Were there incidents? Was there an accident between this driver and Nabil Azlan earlier in the race? We do not know yet. We need to wait for the race officials to give us the word on that. There may be protests coming in by the drivers as well. We will need to wait and see. But waiting and seeing is not what these drivers should be doing anymore. We're on board with Rajmat, who is currently in 4th position. 5 minutes and 18 seconds to go to the end of this race. If these drivers in the top 5 quadrant want to pounce and jump ahead, now is the time to commit. Now it's the time to full send it, like you said earlier, Javier. Now is the time to gamble. Big risks, big returns.
You see Jaka Siswoyo not exactly having the best race here. He is stuck behind one of these drivers here. That it would be Ilham Sheikh in P9. So we are seeing a small battle for P9 here between 3 of these drivers. We've got Ilham in P9, Jaka Siswoyo in P10, and Dafan Nabil in P11. They're really starting to gun for it now. Less than 5 minutes remaining of this race. We are going to see maybe some more bolder moves. You see some of these drivers getting really close to one another, really on the edge of grip here. They are feeling the pressure because top 10 gets top prizes. So far in this battle for P9, Dafan Nabil is not going to get any prize money. So we might see some moves from him later on at closer to the end of the race, or maybe even in a few seconds time, because he is not going to get prize money. All he needs to do is get one more position to get prize money, but that also puts pressure on Jaka Siswoyo, because he, you know, there are 2 outcomes for him right now: to either gun for P9 which will obviously earn him more prize money. But you know, one small mistake and it could put Dafa Nabil up in P10 and he would lose out on the prize money. So what kind of strategy is he going for here? Who knows?
Well, I think for all 10 drivers, in fact for all 22 drivers, aside from the top 10 prize money, there's also a lot at stake, which is pride. Now, we're not just talking about driver pride, because obviously all these drivers have their own driver pride, professionalism that they want to represent and the brands that they represent, but there's also a certain amount of national pride at stake. We have Indonesian drivers, Singapore drivers, Malaysian drivers, Polish drivers, Thai drivers, all really fighting not just for personal glory but for national glory as well. Camera back now to Rajmat for position in this beautiful BWT pink blue livery BMW M235i, coming up to turn number 2.
Oh, a bit of a battle here between Jaka Siswoyo and Ilham Shak. This is the battle we're going for. They're almost going 3 wide, side by side.
They are
a bit of contact.
3
wide into this
Shak
corner.
dropping
Who is going to
position.
prevail? Who's going to back out? Oh, a bit of a contact there going sideways.
Seems
Jaka
like
Siswoyo emerges on top. This is the battle we're looking for.
That's right, almost losing a bit of tail end grip there at the exit of the corner, holding it together nicely. Siswoyo jumps back up to 9. Now, Jaka Siswoyo was qualified the fastest during last week qualifiers with a blistering fast lap time of 1 minute 32 seconds. 1 minute 32.382 rather. But like you mentioned earlier, not the greatest of race for him this particular round. We're 2 minutes and 22 minutes and 15 seconds to the end of the race. It will be a little bit challenging for Siswoyo to catch back up to top 5. Here now, camera on Rajmat, pushing really hard. Right in front of him, Pulowski, and behind him, Ardiansa. Will they be taking any jumping, pouncing opportunities? Will there be a gap for them to overtake? We are on down to the final last 2 laps of the 2023 HyperDrive Cities. This is what we've been waiting for all this past time. And here comes that battle in the last 2.5 minutes.
We see Fadli Rahmat actually has a bit of a damage on his front bumper. Obviously, a lot of hard racing here. You know, we are entering the final few minutes of this race. We have a battle going on, you know, in all sorts of places on this track. We've got the battle for P9, we've got the battle for P2. But Moreno Pratama seems to be in a world of his own. You know, 1 minute 20 seconds to the end of this race. All he needs to do is to not get into an incident, and he would win this race comfortably at, you know, a gap of 7.9 seconds.
That's right, Javier. That is a very big gap. If this was real life racing, or rather if tire wear and tire degradation was involved, of course it would be a little bit different situation, but that is not happening for this particular race, which is a good thing for these drivers, these 4 drivers, because they need as much consistency as they can. They need that tires, they need that fuel, they need everything to be perfect. When the opportunity comes, you take it and you commit 101% into that gap. Once again, down Jalan Ampang here on what I believe to be the second last lap of this race. On board now with Adiansa. Any gap for him to exploit? Any gap to jump in? Not yet. Rajmat closing it nicely. Well, not exactly closing it, just maintaining those lines. Just not enough space for Ardiansa to overtake. Ahead of him, Pulowski coming up very close to bang. I think it's a 0.3 of a second gap. There is that battle for second position.
There you go. These drivers have just crossed the finish line, so we are, or rather the start finish line. So we are entering the final lap of this race right now. We're going to see maybe some moves happening here, but you know, what kind of strategy do these drivers want to play? Do they want to gun for more prize money, or do they want to play conservative and just be happy with what they have right now? Because one small incident could put you out of the top 10 and you would lose all that money straight away. So are we going to see some battles going on here? But of course, you know, like you mentioned earlier, there's a lot of pride involved. So do these drivers, you know, want to race as hard as they can all the way till the final corner, or do they want to play conservative? It is really up to them at this point.
That's right, Javier. Well, from a qualifying point of view, it was a 1-2-3 Indonesia, not currently happening as these drivers go through that chicane on Jalan Sultan Ismail. The second last bit of really hard straight performance, I guess you could say. Camera now back to Moreno Pratama coming through the Salomo Bridge on the final 4 corners of this lap, and they're moving on to the start-finish line. Nicely executed, no flaws, no incidents there. Well, I think it will be probably the checkered flag for him as they cross
Final
over.
quarter, a little bit of a counter-steering action there from Dafa Ardiansa. That is Moreno Pratama, our winner for this year's HyperDrive Series Championship 2023. What's going on at the back?
No
Some of these
changes.
drivers, no changes.
No
So that
changes.
is your top 3 positions there. Moreno Pratama in P1, Tanatip Tanalapanan from Thailand in P2, and the Polish driver competing from the other side of the world in P3.
That's right, and we have Rajmat completing this race in 4th position. In 5th position, Ardiansa. 6th position goes to Aslan. 7th, Reyes. 8th, Andika Rama. 9th, Siswoyo. 10th goes to Shaq.
And in P11, we've got Dafa Nabil, Muhammad Irfan in P12, Ethan Yu, the Singaporean driver in P13, Billy Ebenhazer in P14, and P15 we've got, hold on, we've got a bit of an incident here in
That's Ricky
P16.
Satria going
What happened
off,
there?
going wide. Will he be able to hold on to 16th position? I think he just might. As we have Hakimi coming from onto the outside.
Well, a bit more action at the end of the race. I thought it was over.
That's right. Managed to. I think he went over on the second last corner rather, and just managed to hold on to it ahead of Hakimi. I think Hakimi was hoping that all I needed was just a little bit, half an inch at max maybe, and he could have taken 16. But there we go, ladies and gentlemen. We have the results. Well, the provisional results for the 2023 HyperDrive Cities Championship. As we mentioned earlier, there were some incidents, and we don't know if Aslan, I think it was Aslan Nabil.
Is it Nakib Aslan or Nabil Aslan?
Nabil Aslan, my apologies, who seems to have been disconnected or was a DNF nevertheless. And what happened there, we're going to find out. Will there be any protests between the drivers? We're going to find out. But the provisional results are as it stands, right? Pratama winning the 2023 HyperDrive City. So congratulations, and in fact, congratulations to all the drivers for joining and participating. Javier, which was your most exciting moment from that 30-minute race?
Well, it was a very dominant drive by Moreno Pratama. So really, really splendid driving from him. But of course, apart from that, we've got the battle for P2, which lasted for almost the entire of the race, while Moreno Pratama was busy running away from the pack.
Right.
So we've got really exciting action there. But of course, we're seeing a lot of action from the battle for P9 actually. Jaka Siswoyo really gunning for it. Actually, he was in P10 I think, and he really, I was talking about, does he want to go for the move and get himself more prize money, or does he want to be more conservative to keep that position? Obviously, he went to gun for that move, and it worked out for him.
Paid out,
he got P9.
It paid out figuratively and literally. Because being in 9th position is a little bit more than being in 10th. Now, you did mention earlier, Javier, 10,000 Singapore dollars prize pool for all 10 winners. Congratulations to all and each and every one of you. At this point, we do have to once again special shout out and thanks to our sponsors to allow for 2023 HyperDrive Cities to be possible. Obviously, our good friends over at the Legion of Racers, BWT, Motul, Next Level Racing, Tom at Works, Logitech G, and Nitro. I apologize.
Yeah, of course, yourself, Nitro.
Exactly, I did the whole thing. But yeah, it would not be possible without all these fantastic sponsors, many of them who have been with us from the very beginning.
That's right.
Since 2021 of HyperDrive City. So thank you all so very much, sponsors.
It was an amazing race tonight. We see a lot of action, very similar to the races we see in the previous years as well. Starting from Orchard Road Street Circuit in Singapore, the Indonesian Semangi Street Circuit, and in this year the Kuala Lumpur Street Circuit. And actually we see a very star-studded Indonesian, many Indonesians lining up for the Malaysian Kuala Lumpur Street Circuit. Of course, it was different last year as well. Will we see more next year? You've got to stay tuned to find out.
And there are many ways for you to stay tuned for those of you who are watching at home. If you're not already in the sim racing community, but you're interested to learn more and interested to find out more about sim racing or sim driving, do consider to check out the Legion of Racers. They have a studio right here in Singapore. In fact, what you may not be able to see at home is that we're in the studio right now. And this studio has top of the line, top latest technology in terms of the racing rigs, in terms of the pedals, the steering wheel, the gear shifters, and also, more importantly, if I may add, you have professional sim drivers who are here to coach and guide you. Doesn't matter if you're a beginner, doesn't matter if you're a professional, you could come for training, come for practice, and improve yourself. I have to say, I've been here many times. Drivers like Javier here has tried many times to coach me so I could improve on my sim driving.
Yes, I mean it's
Doesn't
really
work.
it's really
It
great
didn't work for me.
to coach drivers. Is a really amazing opportunity to be able to coach drivers like this. Of course, there are many tracks and cars for you to choose from here in the studio. So do come down and try it out for yourself.
And also the HyperDrive cities. This is an amazing organization that are building real life street roads into street circuits. You guys just witnessed the Kuala Lumpur street circuits. As you mentioned earlier, we had Singapore, we had Indonesia, and like I mentioned at the start of the stream, for those of you who are keen to join this membership program, $5 a month, that's honestly quite affordable, I believe, and you get unlimited updates and upgrades whenever these circuits are expanded. And I know for a fact that the Singapore circuit that was launched in 2021 has expanded and expanded and expanded, and there are more expansion packs coming along the way. Same thing for Indonesia, same thing for Kuala Lumpur. So for those of you who are interested to street race in a safe environment, do consider to check out the HyperDrive cities.
That's right. It's a constantly upgrading program by the HyperDrive Cities team here. With each year we are seeing more and more layouts for each circuit. You see, we've got more than just one circuit now. We've got Orchard, we've got Semangi, we've got Kuala Lumpur, and we have multiple layouts for these tracks as well. So do check out the hyperdriveCities.com website to get yourself some of these tracks for free. If you'd like to try them out before you go into some of the more interesting layouts that I seriously do hope you consider trying out as well.
Well, I am going home shortly after this live stream, and I'm going to jump into my rig and put in a few laps because I think I could do a little bit better.
It is a bit tempting, right? After seeing these drivers put the pedal to the metal in this 30-minute sprint race. It's amazing. It's very exciting to see. And I'm tempted to jump in the rig right now to give it a go myself.
My palms are sweaty, but there's no mom spaghetti. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for joining us for the 2023 edition of the HyperDrive Cities Championship. It was a huge pleasure being here with you, and thank you all for your time to joining Javier and myself as well. Hong here signing off.
And I'm Javier, and we'll see you next time.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Water, my elixir of life. I touch it, feel it, drink it several times a day. It's part of my life, every day. And it's always special thanks to BWT. Filtered, silky smooth, mineralized, for drinking, showering, heating, and in the pool. In the office, restaurant, or a best water hotel. Even in the hospital, I can rely on BWT water for injections. My life has changed over the years, but as the saying goes, what remains is change. And the best water from BWT. BWT. For you and Planet Blue.